Hi. Okay, here's another quick video dealing with VSL and Finale, and we're going to do a little fine tuning um, right now. And one of the things, as I've listened back to some of these videos, that's kind of annoyed me is the sound actually of this little violin sample. So here's what it sounds like. And there are a couple of things I noticed. Number one, there's a weird clipped sound to some of these samples. And if you go into, I'm clicking on Vienna Ensemble down here to get to my instrument. And when I'm here, I can audition. And you notice there's kind of like a clipped sound when I let go. It's almost like an envelope being cut off too quickly. I hear it here too in the détaché patch, um, possibly even here in the staccato. Um, and you will notice that there is, in fact, an envelope setting which is applied to each of the individual patches. And so the legato, the sustain, and it defaults right now to 63. If I were to move this all the way down to super short, that's even more of kind of an awkward cutoff. And if I move it all the way up, the sample is allowed to just naturally kind of fade out. And I'm wondering if the solution here isn't just to move the release time to longer, almost full release, so that the sample just kind of has its full natural release rather than being sort of cut short. So I moved all those up, and now I'm going to go back to Finale for a moment and just listen. Okay, this is sounding a little bit better to me. I'm going to go back now into Vienna Instruments, and I want to observe something else, which is that I said in a previous video that with some sounds that are particularly attack-oriented, like percussion instruments, piano, or for that matter, pizzicato strings, we don't necessarily want velocity crossfade to be the way that we control dynamics. With a pizz, for instance, there's really just an attack. There is no way to change the dynamic after the instrument is attacked. So what I want to do here is for any matrix, there are two different ways to control the velocity crossfade. This checkbox here is the global setting. If I select that off, then it is globally off, and there's no velocity crossfade happening. And if it's on, it's globally on. However, you'll notice here and again, this is all in the advanced view. I tend to live in the advanced view. This is just what you need to see. For each of these patches, there is a velocity crossfade setting, and it can be either global or on or off. So if it's global, that means whatever this setting is what the velocity crossfade is going to be. But if it is on or off, that means you're overriding whatever's set here. And for right now, I am going to choose for the pizz only. I'm going to choose to turn it off. I'm going to choose to turn it off. And what this means is that now, for these pizz notes, I could change the velocity. And I'm going to do that sort of in a radical way right now. Go to velocity here. And one way I can set this is just choose one note at a time. And I'm going to make this first one like 115. I'll make the next one, I'll leave it at 64, Oh, sorry about that. I will, let's get out of, I gotta get out of these things before I make these videos, don't I? Okay, and let's go here and make this like 90, and let's go here and make this 72. So I'm going to hear a real emphasis here on the downbeat and then on beat 3, and let's see if that works. I think we do hear that. I could exaggerate it even more by taking these down to like 30 and 35. In my experience, those are almost inaudible. Let's see if we get it. So you can hear that it does affect playback. Now, human playback works in odd ways that I don't think anybody fully understands. So when we have forte applied here, that's doing something to the velocity message, I believe, that is sent. And we don't necessarily always have complete control. But you'll notice if I go back now to Vienna Ensemble, if I turn this global setting in the pits, if I turn this to just global, right? So now it's going to be on. Those velocity changes should actually have no impact. And I think that's true. I also notice here on the tremolo that I'm not getting enough of a diminuendo as much as I would like. Let's watch what the what is the velocity crossfade works from 95, and I wonder what happens. Let's just see if I put a dynamic there. I'm going to just, what am I doing? I'm going to put a, let's say I had like at the end here, a gold dynamic. Let's see if that changes it. Do we go lower than 39? Let's watch. We get a little lower. And one thing you could attempt here, if you really want to get into micromanaging it, is we could put like a mezzo piano here, and if I don't want to see it, I can unselect show, so I have a hidden dynamic. Let's see what that does. That kind of messed things up. I think that stopped the crescendo in its tracks. So some of these things you have to work with. One thing that doesn't work is to attempt to kind of fight with human playback. So what I don't want to do here, and well, you can see what happens is if I went into the MIDI tool and I chose, if I choose here to, I'm going to choose 1, right? I'm setting, once I set the continuous data to 1, now I'm going to do a scale. And I'm going to scale continuous data. This is absolute. So I'm going to scale from about like 95, which is where I think it's starting in this crescendo, down to, say, 20. And let's see how that works. Watch the velocity crossfade switch. Oops, wrong button. Okay, here we go. You can't quite see it because, but I don't know if you noticed at the very end, the thing was kind of jumping up and down. And that is because it's fighting, the diminuendo and finale's human playback has some sort of human playback component built in that sends these directives on controller 1. If I get rid of this crescendo, this now actually, you won't see that thing bopping up and down at the end, but it should still get softer. And we still saw it bop a little bit, and I think that is that because we've got the forte dynamic in play, and it fights with the pianissimo. So this is an issue because for the most part, you're going to want human playback to be in play. There are a couple of different ways to deal with some of these issues with dynamics. It's tricky. One thing we can experiment with is to create an expression. And I'm going to create a whole new expression category in Finale. I'm going to duplicate technique text. I'm just going to hit duplicate. And I'm going to call this hidden playback. And it's going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be hidden. And I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to create an expression called HP off. And I'm going to, for playback, I'm going to choose hidden playback off. And that's it. Hidden playback off. And I'm actually going to assign this while this is here. If I hit Shift H, now I've made a meta tool, so that's a shortcut, and I can turn human playback off. And now I'm going to create another thing, which is HP on, and the playback here is just going to be human playback on. And I am going to create a meta tool there by hitting Shift J. And now I'm going to cancel out of this. But now I have with my expression tool selected in Finale. Now, if I want to turn a human playback off, I just hit the H button and click, and I get human playback off, and then I get human playback on here. Now that may change the performance here, or it may not. Let's see what it does. And interestingly, what it did was it affected all of these pitches. When I turn human playback off, it didn't make the key switch. So I'm going to leave that alone for right now, and I'm just going to say that this is one of the things that is a little bit tricky. I want that diminuendo to be more pronounced, and I'm not entirely getting it. What I will do now is I'm going to reinstate my diminuendo here, and I am going to go into the MIDI tool, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this bar, and I'm going to choose clear selected items, and I'm just going to clear away. I'm going to say none, and then I'm going to choose MIDI data. This is my filter here, and what I'm clearing away all MIDI data. And now what I've also done is I've cleared away not only the modulation data there, but we had made a global selection. You see that in the previous measure, volume, controller 7 was set to 100. In the next one, it's set to 100, but I've cleared it away for this bar. That shouldn't matter because there's no reason why volume would need to be set or changed in that bar. And the same should probably be true of 11. We'll see same thing. It's set to 100 in the previous bars, but here I've erased it. And if I'm worried about that, I could reinstate that. Okay, so here's just some additional working back and forth. I'm going to stop this video now, and there'll be one or two more dealing with the MIDI tool.